Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Freeform Friday. Wait, what? It's only Tuesday? Oh, yes. So this is Freeform Tuesday Night Titans. I know there's another show here on YouTube, also called TNT Tuesday Night Titans, but vastly different from the content that those fine gentlemen provide every Tuesday night on YouTube. I am your host, as always, David Buchanan, and welcome. I know it's only Tuesday, but let's just try to stay positive. The week will be over momentarily, and everything will be all right. So we're just waiting for my esteemed co-host to join us this week. We have some pretty interesting topics that we're going to be talking about from wrestling's past. And we're also going to be talking about a couple of other things that have been breaking news in the world of wrestling. It was revealed early this morning, as per Barry Windham in an interview with Bill Apter, that Mike Rotunda has sadly been admitted to hospice. We don't have any further details at the moment unless there has been a statement released by the family. We will bring that over to you. And sadly, it's not looking too good for Mr. Rotunda. Of course, he's the father of Bo Dallas, a.k.a. Uncle Howdy from the Wyatt Six, and Wyndham Rotunda, better known as Bray Wyatt. So we are depending on and hoping for thoughts, prayers, and all the best. And we were also told or informed last week that Larry Shreve, better known as Abdullah the Butcher, has been also admitted to the hospital as well. And I'm sure Alan is going to have a lot to say about that as well. He's got his fair share or his fair stories regarding Larry Shreve, Abdullah the Butcher. So I'm just going to add Alan to the stage, and then I'm going to mute my mic because I'm not sure if we still have the same issues, but let's try and see if the updates or the bugs have been fixed. If they haven't, we're just going to have to pivot like we did last time. Alan, what is going on, sir? How are you?
Oh, doing well, David. Thank you very much. Getting ready for Halloween, so we're going to go down some spooky roads tonight in wrestling history. But yeah, as I think I just heard you mention, there's also a lot of sad current old school news going around. No more than enough to create a scary sort of season.
As I sent you the link earlier this morning, and it's sad news. It's news that I wasn't expecting. It was revealed that Mike Rotunda has been admitted to hospice care, as per Barry Windham in an interview with Bill Apter.
Yeah, very sad news. And I was just, it's a stunning news to everybody, pretty much. I don't think anybody really knew this before Barry revealed it. And I was just thinking a little bit before how it was very, I wouldn't say a famous incident. A lot of people don't know much about it. But one night in Peoria, Illinois, when Rotunda was traveling with the Nasty Boys and perhaps Davey Boy Smith at a house show, from house show to house show, and after they left the building, they were pursued. Goes back to January 5th, 1992, actually, and they were pursued by this other car that appeared to be from some of the fans that had attended the show, or full of those fans. That one car, and they started to like kind of play chicken with the car or do something, and they were trying to get the car to pull over, and they succeeded. And Brian Knobbs and Jerry Saggs, the Nasty Boys, I think went over to see, or at least Brian did, or not both of them, I think, went over to see why they were doing this, because I guess at this time, even being wrestling heels, I mean, a lot of people kind of knew that, that they weren't necessarily terrible people in real life. And unfortunately, what happened is when they approached the car, one or two of them jumped out and started and was wielding a knife and started to stab the Nasty Boys, especially Knobs. He was more seriously injured, if I remember correctly. But anyway, there were too many of them, or they were just so caught off guard that unfortunately the fans got the fans, if you can call them that, these deranged people got the better of them, and it was actually Rotunda who jumped out of the car and managed to save the Nasty Boys from even more serious fate with their stabbing injuries. And I can't recall if Davy Boy. I mean, Davy Boy was not a heel then, but definitely it was Rotunda who jumped out and saved of all people, right? Or the mild mannered wrestling accountant saved the two street fighters from Allentown, Pennsylvania, from a very potentially horrible fate. And Rotunda was, he's like that. He was just, all around respected, well liked guy, and and as Barry had said, he never even got into trouble. He's one of the few wrestlers who didn't get pulled over by the cops for doing something terrible, or, or they discovered something or whatever. And well, and, he was just, super dependable, and we just pray for him and wish him well. And we don't even know really what's going on, right? So,
No, I do know that he's had some health complications for the better part of 2025.
okay.
And I know that, if I'm not mistaken, Mike was actually supposed to make an appearance in Florida at a wrestling convention alongside Barry Windham. Because the reason I know about that is because, for those of you that didn't know or you might have heard, Barry Windham was originally advertised to attend this year's Slam Fest at Ruby Foos, which went down on September the 20th. And unfortunately, Barry Windham had to pull out due to family reasons. And I know that JF, one of the organizers of Slamfest, was supposed to head down to Florida to see Barry Windham, so that all of the fans that purchased items to get signed would be able to get their autographs. And Mike Rotunda was going to be there. I'm not sure if he was able to keep his commitment or make his booking. And the fans had the opportunity to get customized US Express jackets signed by both Barry and Mike.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Cheers. Yeah, no, definitely been a tough couple years for that family. Even Barry Windham himself had a very serious coronary episode, as you recall, probably a few years ago.
Yes.
And obviously the loss of Mike's son is well, a huge tragedy in all of wrestling. And it's the last thing the family needs is more horrible stuff or big challenges like this. And yeah, it's really, I think actually it was just, again, Ted DiBiase who said it best at Hulk Hogan's funeral, is like looking around and realizing how few of the legends have held up. And I mean, the ones that are even still alive. And it's like, so, we really gotta hope. And, and Rotunda is such a good egg that, it's so impossible not to root for him, right? I'd like to root for Larry Shreve as well. I mean, I'm not sure what kind of an egg he is. I mean, depends who you ask. But look, life is life, and he deserves to have health. You know, I mean, well, at least in his case, God, I mean, he's outlived a lot of his contemporaries. I mean, let him keep living and let him feel better. But yeah, no, my one live experience with him was certainly disturbing to me because I was young, and he couldn't understand what I was doing and why I was there. And if it wasn't going to be money making, then there's no point in doing it. I mean, basically, he revealed what he's all about, right? Because what the hell would you put any effort into anything if you weren't going to make a lot of money, which was basically what he snapped at me about. I mean, I was, I mean, I was introduced by an intermediary who talked me up and gave me compliments. But Larry thought about it as it's funny how he says he's illiterate because he was reading my newsletter. He likes to claim illiteracy, but he was sitting there reading through it. So he
Mhm.
can't read or write, but somehow he could read between the ropes, right? And
When it goes, his illiteracy goes in and out.
yeah, intermittent illiteracy. That's a new diagnosis. Intermittent illiteracy. Yeah.
We might as well
So
put that. We might as well take that phrase and put it on a shirt.
might as well. I just sneezed the truth for Larry Shreve right there. And no, folks, he's not from the Sudan. He's indeed from around Windsor, Ontario. And I don't believe him to be illiterate, at least not when I met him. He certainly wasn't. He read enough to basically crumple it up and throw it in my face practically. And I don't think that was a defensive mechanism because he couldn't read. He appeared to be reading it from what I could see. So, anyway, I wish him well. I hope Larry recovers. I hope Mike is going to be okay or reasonably okay. I don't even know. We don't know what the issue is exactly, totally. But yeah, tough time to be an old school wrestling fan. For sure.
Mhm. And 2025 has already been a difficult year.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. I mean, there were many years in the past we said that too, but yeah, this one is definitely proving to be a doozer of sorts for sure.
All right, so let's get right into it. So we had a lot of topics as per usual. Always have a lot of topics. Uh, we are firm believer. We are firm believers, or we don't believe in less is more when it comes to talking about wrestling content. And just a friendly reminder to each and every one of you that are brand new to the channel. If you like the content that you see, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get notified every time some new content is uploaded and every single time we go live.
Got it.
So, the first event that we're going to talk about, we're going to go back. So, this is another reason why it's freeform because it's not linear. We don't go in chronological order, so to speak. Sometimes we do. But we're going to see how this goes. So we're going to get things started. We're going to talk about the 1989 King of the Ring tournament. Now, this is before the King of the Ring actually became, one of the main WWF pay-per-views, from 1993 to 2002. And this is when it was a televised tournament. And this would go down on the 14th of October in 1989.
It was
In
an
Providence, Rhode
untelevised game.
Island, at the Providence Civic Center. Only 4,500 fans showed up to see the untelevised. Well, it was untelevised, so it was maybe I was a little too quick to jump the gun on that one, but you get my drift. This was untelevised.
Well, yeah, it was because I mean, different in the earliest years when they purposely filmed some of it because they wanted to show why Harley Race was the king, and the cameras were rolling. But in the ones for a few years after, it was just a house show basically that had a theme, almost like a Royal Rumble tryout or But in this case, it was an annual tradition that they would do at a house show once a year. I mean, and it didn't make the news too much, except it made the wrestling news, I guess, but not the wrestling big news. They never talked about it on television. They never acknowledged who the winners were after Harley Race won it. And later on, of course, the King title would change many times at non-King of the Ring events when Jim Duggan and Randy Savage and Haku, of course, were crowned. So.
Mm-hmm. Or as he was known in WCW, and we have a WCW event to discuss later on.
Yeah.
The man called Bang.
Yeah, we're going to talk about him. Always great to talk about him, but I mean, I am sorry that he went to work for the company, but I guess he made a good living. It's like Terry Taylor said, "What the hell are you guys doing here from Montreal?" Right? What a waste of time. And JF going to Florida was for good reason, but if you're driving from Montreal to Florida to see Slamboree 95, Terry Taylor wants your head examined. So.
Yep, and this would be the first time we could say a rooster wants some heads examined.
That's right. I didn't blame him in this case. So, as a matter of fact, I looked at the people who drove down, and I'm like, yeah, maybe it's fun to go to Florida and everything, but that's what you go for, Slamboree 95. But we're going to talk about a show that's pretty much just as bad, if not even worse, actually, later. So,
All right, so take us through the events that would go down on this joyous night, October 14th, 1989.
yeah. Yeah, well, I guess it was joyous, although not too many people saw it. I mean, 1988 didn't even have a King of the Ring. They skipped a year. So 87 was the last one, and Randy Savage, ironically, the future king, Macho King, actually won that tournament. This was at the time when they were sort of really hammering it down people's throats in a good way that he's a baby face now and everybody should get behind him. He's one half of the mega powers. But in 88, they didn't even do a King of the Ring. So in 89, it just spontaneously came back. And again, outside the local market, no publicity was done. And the best they could do was to draw 4,500 fans. But again, what were you really going to see? I mean, Hulk Hogan was not there on the show, and you weren't going to see like the Ultimate Warrior, and so again, maybe that had something to do with it too, because the biggest stars weren't even there. The tournament had rather Akeem, the African Dream. It had Brutus, the Barber Beefcake. It had Hercules, Nikolai Volkov, who took a lot of 1989 off. He disappeared in February, and he came back around this time. This is actually, of course, in October. So Nikolai Volkov was back, and Boris Zukov, his partner, was he in this? No, he wasn't in it. Tito Santana was in it. Haku Ming and the Red Rooster, as you mentioned, they were here. The Warlord was in it, the Bushwhackers, and anyway, to all this to say, Akeem made it through the first round. He beat Beefcake. Hercules and Jim the Anvil Neidhart eliminated each other. There was a double disqualification. The Warlord beat Bushwhacker Butch, which must have been a massacre. I mean, actually, at this time, the Bushwhackers and the Powers of Pain were feuding on the house shows. They had a match here in Montreal a few weeks before that, actually, which was kind of painful, but I guess it was not as bad as it could have been. So the Warlord advanced, Tito Santana advanced, and it's kind of sad. He defeated Bad News Brown. I don't like to see Bad News Brown do too many jobs, but unfortunately he didn't pull the Mil Mascaris, if you will, and he was willing to do jobs at times, even though I'm sure he didn't love it. But at this time, he lost to Tito, and Tito's arch enemy, but former partner Rick Martel, got a win over enhancement talent Bill Wood, who was filling in for, I don't even remember who he was filling in for, but somebody didn't make it that night. And Bushwhacker Luke, though, didn't lose. Unlike Butch, he actually beat the aforementioned Nikolai Volkov. Also there were Jimmy Superfly Snuka and the Warlord's partner, the Barbarian. Barbarian lost to Snuka, and Haku got the win over the Red Rooster. So they move on to round two. Tito Santana defeats the Warlord. Like, obviously at SummerSlam 90, the result was the opposite, but at that time, the Warlord wasn't a singles wrestler, so you could actually pin his shoulders to the mat, as hard as it sounds from a physical. At least he didn't have the hunchback like Jim Hurt style. You could actually stick his shoulders to the mat, so that was kind of good.
Exactly. No hunchbacks.
No. I wonder, like the ding dongs, like you said, one is called ding and one is called dong. And with the hunchbacks, what would you have called them? Hunch and back? I don't know. Or hunch one.
For the lack of a better term, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I have a hunch, so that's number one, right? So yeah, that's it. And then Rick Martel beat Bushwhacker Luke. Snuka beat Haku. Then you get to the semifinals. Poor Akeem has to work again, and he loses to Tito Santana. Can you believe this? Tito Santana beats both the Warlord and Akeem, who outweigh him by 100 pounds each. On the same night, he beats the Warlord and Akeem, while Rick Martel surprise, surprise. So they set up a good final there, gets the win over Snuka, and the main event turns out to basically be the former Strikeforce members, Santana versus Martel, and Santana got the win and becomes the 1989 King of the Ring. But much like the early Royal Rumbles, other than the prestige of it, there's no real reward or exciting enticement. I guess your check was big that night or something. Maybe it's like the days like in Georgia and the territories where they'd come out and give you a $25,000 oversized check or like a game show. And here you go. And of course, it's a kayfabe check. But so Tito Santana, whatever it's worth for one night, became King of the Ring in 1989. Didn't help his push very much because his push just went down and whatever. So.
Well, all I can say in regards to Tito Santana, arriba.
That's it. But he did have a hell of a long run, so he was doing okay, all things considered.
And I didn't realize 1991 was such a good year for so many people. Because we have a couple of things to talk about, and this is something, it gets talked about from time to time, but not very often. So we're going to go back to the 21st of October, 1991. WWF Superstars of Wrestling and Primetime Wrestling television tapings that would go down in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So I'm going to mention this little tidbit here, and before I let you go over, talk about what happened. So Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and this is at the time when Ricky Steamboat was the Dragon. He was, dressed up, and he used to spit the fire, and the poor guy used to have to wash his mouth out with to get rid of the taste of lighter fluid in his mouth.
Yikes.
It wasn't a very fun time, and this would be one occasion where Ricky was brought in with the assumption that he was going to be used to his full potential, and he was waiting for a main event spot to open. But, as plans will be, plans will go awry. And Ricky was let go or gave his notice, as he's told the story in various shoot interviews. He was let go, and after giving his notice, he refused to do jobs for The Undertaker and Mike Rotunda IRS during the taping. Well, Ricky would go on to say in a shoot interview that it wasn't that he didn't want to do the job, but what he had an issue with, his gripe was that he's doing two different jobs on the same night during the same series of television tapings. So what's the point of him doing two jobs on one television taping? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. It's separate television tapings. No one's going to care. Ricky was old school. He keeps, I guess you could say, kayfabe, or at least understands the need for continuity, or making something, or being jobbed out, making sense.
Right. Well, it was bad continuity because this is what kind of kept happening, except for winning lower card matches. Yeah. So.
Well, it's funny because I remember a story from, and this is from Mario Mancini, who I'd met at Slamfest. And he didn't tell me this story at Slamfest. I had heard him tell the story on the Power and Glory podcast with Paul Roma. And he told me at this particular time, this is when kayfabe really mattered. So, long story short, Mario is asked to do a stretcher job for Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, which he does. Now, the importance of keeping kayfabe back then was that he had to sell this stretcher job all the way back to the locker room or the dressing room, so that not only the fans, make sure that the fans believed it, but also the people, the security people and the venue event staff were also made to believe that this was real. So after he's done the stretcher job and he makes it back safely into the locker room, Chief Jay Strongbow at the time said, "It's okay. It's okay now. It's okay, kid. You can get up now. It, it's all right. You don't have to keep. You don't have to keep playing. You don't have to keep pretending. It's okay. It's done. Now, no more matches for you tonight since you just did the stretcher job. So go take a shower, get changed, and make sure you go out by the back door. We don't want anybody to see you. We want people to believe that this really happened to you. We don't want to, you know, show the fans that this was actually a work."
Sure. Especially at that time, my God, yeah. Well, you said, but Steamboat was saying that. Well, no, I mean he's right. It is damaging because, well, first of all, he didn't come back to be an opening match guy, and all the house shows around that time, he seemed to be defeating Skinner around the circuit. But even though he got the win, he was the opening match every time, and he was starting to get very dissatisfied, like you said. And apparently, the fire breathing wasn't originally supposed to happen every show. It was supposed to be saved for the big events, but apparently the boss liked it so much. He said, "Oh, that's great," when they lower the lights, and so he wanted him to do it every show. So it was a bit more like. But again, though, what is the? You're right. I mean, what is the point? I mean, if he's just going to either lose or always be the opening match, this is the same Ricky Steamboat that was battling Ric Flair 2 years earlier to the best matches and main events all around the country. He didn't come back to be an opening match guy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so you're right. It's not the jobs themselves, but this was him just standing up for himself and saying, this is enough. And yeah, no, well said, and a good Mario Mancini story. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, my pleasure. And you wrote here Sid Justice versus, but we don't have an opponent. Care to elaborate?
Did I write that? Oh, sorry about
Yes.
that.
Well, it's no problem. I thought maybe there would be a further elaboration on your end, but I guess not. It's okay.
Yeah. I guess not. I mean, no, I think it was just, yeah, sorry, but I think it was just, that was a typo because he did work the television taping, but I think this might have been around the time, though, where I think Sid, what did I, yeah, it was, yeah, anyway, no, but no, sorry, that was, he just wrestled a couple squash matches, nothing noteworthy.
All right. Well, he was still doing squash matches at that time. And we also had Hacksaw Jim Duggan pinning Big Bully Busick with Harvey Whippleman with a running clothesline. I know we don't talk much about Big Bully Busick. You care to share any Big Bully Busick stories?
Sure. Yeah, so Big Bully Busick was a really interesting guy. He passed away, unfortunately, from esophageal cancer complications in 2018. Even though just a year or two before that, he thought he had beat it. He had had a good surgery and stuff, but his life was really interesting. He started out in the 70s and 80s as a champion powerlifter and amateur wrestler. This was long before he had that appearance, and eventually he was approached. Who was it who approached him? Somebody approached him and asked him if he wanted to be a wrestler. I can't remember who right now. And after the career in powerlifting and all that, I mean, he was a big, bulked up guy, and he basically went to wrestle. His first territory was working for another big guy who we talked about, I think, last week or the week before, Crusher Jerry Blackwell, who was promoting in the Georgia area. So Busick came in and wrestled in Georgia, and while he was there, one of the announcers? It wasn't Blackwell. It was somebody who's might have even been. Could it have been Tony Schiavone? It could have been. Who said to him, like, you, the way you are and this and that. He said, why don't you, like, you kind of look like one of those minor guys, or one of, like, not minor as in not major, but I mean, a guy who works in a mine. And so he got the idea to adapt this character of what the stereotype of a steel mill worker or miner would be, and he became a bully. They started to realize he was good at that. So he adopted a bully gimmick, and that's how this started, with the cigar eventually, and the hat, and of course the very signature handlebar mustache that he had. And he wrestled on and off for a bunch of years there, and eventually, of course, making his way before the WWF. I think he no, was it after? Yeah, it was. I mean, the WWF stint was very short, and then he went on to work for the company that replaced the Von Erichs, World Class Wrestling, in. Oh, now I remember. No, it wasn't Tony Schiavone. Speaking of Global Wrestling, it was Joe Pedicino, the guy who started Global Wrestling years earlier when he was running the. He was doing a lot of stuff in Georgia, and of course went on to host the big wrestling block with Gordon Soley and the Atlanta Superstation. It was Joe Pedicino who suggested to him, maybe you should become a bully character. So after the WWF, he went to work for Joe Pedicino again in the Global Wrestling Federation. And it's funny, his tag team partner occasionally there was Bad News Brown, who we talked about before. Bad News Brown and Big Bully Busick formed a team. But in the WWF, yes, the run was short. He actually, I don't know if you would remember this, he had a very brief feud on television with the Brooklyn Brawler, Steve Lombardi, who I believe you also met in Gatineau or whatever.
Yes, I did meet Steve Lombardi, and I don't remember that feud, but I can kind of see Vince McMahon putting that together because they both kind of smoke cigars, and it's like the battle of the cigars, pal. Yeah.
Right, but actually, but actually, you're kind of right. And what it was they wanted to settle it between them, who was the baddest bully in the WWF. That's kind of because Brooklyn Brawler prided himself on bullying people, and here comes a guy calling himself Big Bully Busick. So yes, you're right about the cigars. It was all part of being a bully, and the mini feud was based on who's the tougher bully. And it wasn't a good sign that Brawler won one of the matches, the two big matches between them that I think were for primetime wrestling. It was aired on primetime wrestling, and they each won one. But I mean, Busick obviously wasn't going to be a big star, because if the Brooklyn Brawler can beat you, no offense to Lombardi at that time, probably not going places. And then he spent the rest of his time, of course, losing to various people, like you just said. Lost to Duggan, lost to, of course, Bret Hart. That was the last one. He did a lot of jobs, so, but yeah, anyway, so he went on to Global Wrestling and kept working independents. Then he retired a bit, and then he came back one time for like a 5-year period in 2005, and later he'd be until 2010, and he got sick. But he was a well-liked guy, actually. I mean, despite the image, I mean, I think he was well-liked in the gyms of Georgia, as I recall. I mean, he was a champion power lifter. I think he even went back to he didn't even stop powerlifting until like the early 2000s or something, if I'm not mistaken. So very interesting life he led. But you're right, it was kind of under the radar because he didn't spend a lot of time in the big federations. And but no, certainly in Georgia he was very well regarded, and may he rest in peace. So.
Yes, indeed. But I remember we discussed this. Do we know the reason behind Big Bully Busick's departure from the WWF?
I can't remember. Maybe it was similar to Steamboat. Maybe he was tired of losing. I don't know, honestly. I cannot remember. I know I knew once, but it was such a minor factoid because his run was so short. I can't even remember now what it is. But actually, it's a good research question. I'd like to look into that. No, I don't remember the reason, but I guess Harvey Whippleman couldn't hang on to too many good guys for too long. So.
And there's also another interesting Big Bully Busick story I want to share.
Sure.
This appeared on the Bobby the Brain Heenan DVD, because there used to be kids in the audience that were plants. So there was an incident where the bully popped a balloon on a kid.
Right.
And the kid was none other than Bobby Heenan, not Eaton. Freudian slip on my end. Bobby Heenan's daughter.
Oh, really? That was her? Oh, wow.
Yeah. And right after it was all said and done, she demanded to get paid. And this is a
Just like
kid, a kid.
well, she is the daughter of the brain. I guess you're talking about Jessica Enan. Wow, that's cool.
Yes.
Did
Yes,
not know
indeed,
that.
we are.
I know he popped some kids' balloons with it. I didn't know that was one of them. I didn't know that there was a plant and it was Bobby Heenan's daughter in that particular occasion. But yeah, that was one of his things to show he was a bully and upset kids. Wow, I didn't. That's interesting. Well, good on Jessica. The story is more about her.
Oh, absolutely. And then you had, and now this is a match. I guess this would be something worth watching or looking up on YouTube. Ric Flair defeating Jim the Anvil Neidhart via submission with the figure four. After the bout, Flair twice reapplied the hold and continued to injure the knee of Neidhart. And then Neidhart would be helped backstage until the Beverly brothers, who were coming out for their match, attacked him in the aisle, which cost Neidhart to miss Survivor Series 91. But that was just a way of writing him off television.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, the Survivor Series that year underwent so many personnel changes. Even Big Bully Busick was scheduled for Survivor Series 91 in the same match on the other side, on the heel side, and he didn't make it either. So just in that match, there were several substitutions. Big Bully Busick was taken out of the heel team, and Neidhart was taken out of the babyface team in that match, and were replaced by other people. Hercules, I believe, replaced Big Bully Busick, who was pretty much broken up with Paul Roma. Speaking of power and glory at this time, and Neidhart's replacement was, because on one side you had Colonel Mustafa, the Berserker Skinner, and it was supposed to be Busick, but it turned out to be Hercules. And on the other side you had Tito Santana. No, sorry. Yeah, no,
Mm-hmm.
the Matador was there, the Texas
Yeah.
Tornado. And but what happened is, um, ah, yeah, well, there were a few things that happened. There was Tornado, it was him, and oh yeah, they were suspecting that maybe they'd get Sergeant Slaughter because I think Nikolai, was it Nikolai? No, Duggan. Sorry, it was Jim Duggan. But Duggan was trying to maybe forgive Sergeant Slaughter for turning against America. They would start teaming up, of course. So yeah, so it was an interesting. Yeah, I think it was a way to make room for beer. But I mean, writing off television. I mean, about 2 weeks after this, he started Neidhart as part of the new foundation with Owen Hart. So that team, I think, debuted around November 11th, 12th. Those tapings. The next set of TV tapings after this, Neidhart would form the new foundation. But it's funny because this only aired on television right before the Survivor Series. So Neidhart was still wrestling at, because if you haven't seen it yet on television, it hasn't really happened. Right? So even though Neidhart turned out to be out of commission, he still wrestled without any injury. It was a kayfabe injury. And before Survivor Series would start, would you say an infamous team of the new foundation? I don't know how well received it was. People were excited at first, but it
Well,
quickly was.
that ring attire alone is infamous on its own.
Yeah, no, it is, and I guess Owen would continue with high energy in that outfit with the Coco Beware, the taxi uniforms, or later there was it the parachute pants.
The parachute pants. What was the other one? The other story I heard. There was a big sale at the Yellow Cab,
Yeah,
or I don't know. They just got out of bed, so they were wrestling in their pajamas.
yeah. But it really, but when you get down to it, the real reason wasn't the outfits. It was because you can't really redo Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart. Obviously, Owen Hart was super talented, but Bret and Jim were such a unique tandem that you just couldn't replicate, because that's what they were trying to do, right? Because they were trying to make it the new foundation. But unfortunately, the old foundation was still near and dear to the hearts of many wrestling fans. But yeah, so this was just an angle basically to do that. But at least you got to see Flair versus Neidhart on television, which was kind of a captivating match. It is available online if you want to see the match. Nothing special, but it was interesting.
And then some other matches. So we have Chris Chavis. Now, this is before he's anointed Tatanka. He would defeat Skinner. And you had the $1 million champion at the time, Virgil, defeating Hercules via submission with the $1 million dream. The Undertaker would defeat the Big Boss Man via disqualification. And then you would also have another $1 million championship match where Virgil would defeat Ted DiBiase, but of course that wouldn't. There would be a rematch, and we know what would happen, and we know who would be the person. We would be who the person involved would be to cost him the match.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Virgil was having a good month or three there, and Skinner not so much. I mean, losing to Steamboat everywhere. Now he's losing to a guy that doesn't even have a gimmick yet. I mean, or if he has the gimmick, he's not being called Tatanka yet. He's just plain old Chris Chavis from the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina.
Well, wasn't he from the? Well, this was revealed years later. He's from the Lakota tribe.
Oh, okay. Right. But they didn't portray it that way on television, as I recall.
No, not until his second run in 2006.
Oh, okay. Thankfully, I'd stopped watching by then. So.
And then you had the Legion of Doom taking on the Natural Disasters. Legion of Doom would win via disqualification. Ric Flair would defeat Roddy Piper, one of the very rare occasions where Roddy Piper actually did a job for someone and put someone over before doing the JOB to Bret Hart.
He probably cried about it first for who would listen. I mean, how could he beat Flair, though? I mean, Flair was dead. Flair is pure greatness. So as great as Piper is, I mean, what else?
And then Davey Boy Smith would defeat Big Bully Busick.
There's another guy who Busick lost to, Davey Boy Smith.
Oh, yes. And then we go into a couple of other items and news and notes and tidbits, like the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty defeating Barry Horowitz and Mark Buenavara when Jannetty would pin Horowitz after reversing an O'Connor roll.
But the noteworthy part is what happened after the match or at the end of it.
In which Shawn Michaels would be, prior to the finish, Shawn Michaels was flirting with a girl in the crowd as Jannetty was looking to tag out. Now, at this time, this is where the tease of the inevitable Rocker split was in its infancy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is where you start to see the seeds planted for the dissension between them. And after more than 3 years of being a solid team that everybody loved, it turns out that maybe they didn't love each other. And things, this is where exactly. So you're starting to see on television that it's not business as usual necessarily.
Mm-hmm. And then we would have the famous funeral parlor segment in which Hulk Hogan was confronted by Ric Flair and attacked from behind by The Undertaker before Piper and Savage holding steel chairs would make the save.
Yeah, and I like that because I remember when I saw it the first time, it was it was on the funeral parlor set, and The Undertaker came right out of the standing casket. That was part of the set. He just emerges like you weren't like I wasn't expecting that. I was like, he just came out of nowhere because usually these interview segments didn't really result in an angle unless it was a face-to-face thing. But to see Hulk Hogan beaten to a pulp was unusual. And it set the stage, of course, for the gravest challenge at Survivor Series between The Undertaker and Hogan. And the fact that Hogan and Flair were starting to mingle, this is like, I think, 4 days before their first ever house show match, which would take place on the California Loop, which is even still talked about because nobody could understand why Hogan Flair wasn't a bigger deal and wasn't saved for pay-per-view and wasn't this and wasn't that. Well, Flair and Hogan started to get involved with each other's stuff because, well, as I said, 4 days after this taping, Hogan and Flair would lock up for the first time at a WWF house show.
And not only that, we had Jacob the Snake of Roberts pinning Bob Werner with a DDT in 42 seconds. And after the match, Jacob the Snake of would get on the microphone and try to goat Randy Savage, who was doing commentary, into the ring, where he would trap him into the ring ropes, assaulting him, allowing his King Cobra snake to gnaw on Savage's arm. Roberts would hold officials at bay until Savage, who was delirious, was able to be pulled out of the ring. Miss Elizabeth and Roddy Piper came out to try to assist Savage during the segment. I know we've talked about this incident many times, but it was one of those oh my god moments that they didn't do a lot of at that time, and it was very dark, very violent, and very scary.
Yeah, so much so that they applied the old-fashioned X sensor over it. So when the Cobra was gnawing away on Randy's arm, they, at least on regular syndicated television, they covered it up with a red X. The way that the way, like when Brutus Beefcake, the first time I ever saw that was when Brutus Beefcake was being mauled by the spurs of Outlaw Ron Bass, which cost him his Intercontinental match with the Honky Tonk Man at SummerSlam '88. But of course, that was all. He was never supposed to be part of it anyway. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, you knew it was bad when they would put a red X over it. You know, the way that like Raw in Canada in later years wouldn't air certain violent or profane or whatever things that you could see on the American broadcast. I mean, not only was it horrifying to see this angle play out, but you believed it was really bad if they had to put, you know, like the television station. It would seem didn't even seem like it was maybe the WWF. Like the television station. The stations themselves were like, this is too violent. You can't see this. It's too horrible. And they added a lot of effect because Elizabeth ran out and she, you know, her and Randy were married by this time, 8 years before. But in kayfabe, they had just gotten married a few months earlier. And she was screaming her head off. How often did you see that? I mean, she was hysterical, shrieking, and so it was a really bad scene. Like it was. I mean, you're right. I mean, we never seen much like something like this before. It was. I couldn't even understand. Even in later years, I was scratching my head like why Randy. But I guess why he would agree to do this. But I guess as we've learned, I mean, he would sacrifice just about anything for his profession and his bottom line and his success, and he was willing to well, not without paranoia first, as the story goes, but he was willing to you know, to put himself in that kind of risk or supposed kayfabe risk for a very extreme angle before Paul Heyman was doing them in ECW. So.
And paranoia is an understatement because it was discussed. And Randy told Jake in the locker room, like only Randy could, yes, that snake had been fixed, Well, before I go out and do it, I want it to bite you, snake man. Which it did. And then Jake would go on to say, yeah, it's nuts, man. So I took the snake, I put it back in the bag, and I paintbrushed the shit out of it. Well, thankfully, nobody called PETA on you, Jake, even though it is a snake.
Yeah, well, although I guess PETA would probably argue the snake had no business even being there anyway.
Yeah, and Jake would also say, as this was all going on, he was trying to get the snake off, but the snake just wouldn't let go.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't let go. You know, he would go on to say, I'm trying and I'm trying to get it off, but it's like, oh no, it's like fangs kicked in.
Yeah, pretty nuts. And Randy was actually sick after that, even though there was no venom, but Randy still suffered an infection and he had a very high fever, and so it was very unfortunate and not pretty, and very traumatic. You think popping the kid's balloon is something. I mean, imagine the kid seeing this.
Oh
Little
yeah,
kid.
and did you hear this? Apparently, if it wasn't a few hours later or a few days later, that snake died.
Yeah, I'd forgotten, but yes, I had heard that. But that was that related completely.
The macho man might have had a fever, but that snake didn't stand a chance against me.
No, I guess it didn't, sadly. But as you can see here, there's still a lot. This is probably the very last of the glory period of the WWF, with a lot of big angles, big names, and obviously, WCW was really doing badly at this time, and it was 6 days after this that the aforementioned Larry Shreve would be electrocuted in the Chamber of Horrors of that year's Halloween Havoc, and that's the best WCW could do. We talked about Halloween Havoc '91 last week a little bit, the lead up to it, and so this is, yeah, I mean, this is probably, within a few months, a lot of those big names will have left the WWF, and scandals of various sorts would engulf the Federation, but they were starting to get daring and trying new things and new exciting matchups. The Hogan Flair dream was about to come true, and wasn't much of a dream, I guess. And so there you go. And this is the October 21st, '91. Noteworthy television taping in various respects. And yes, Jim the Anvil Neidhart missed the Survivor Series.
So moving on to something a little different. So we're also going to we're looking back now at the 35th anniversary of an event that would go down on October the 25th, 1990. And this would be the New Japan Pro Wrestling's All-Star Wrestling Grand Prix show at Japan Mayabashi Green Dome. And it drew 10,800 fans in the autumn of 1990 to see Shinya Hashimoto defeat Larry Cameron. That's one. And Bad News Allen or Bad News Brown and the Pegasus Kid, Chris Benoit, defeating Mr. Saito and Osamu Kido. It just gets better. I'm loving this. I'm loving this as I'm going down the card. Tony Halame, better known to WWF fans as Ludwig Borga, and the Viking in Herb Abrams' UWF would defeat the Soul Taker. The Soul Taker. I'm wondering if it's the same Soul Taker I'm thinking of.
Oh yeah, it is the same one. It is.
The same one that told us years later to come aboard that
train.
The choo-choo!
That's right. The same one who would practice voodoo a few years later, and etc., and be an ultimate fighting machine and everything.
And then you had boxer versus wrestler.
Well, that was Halm versus.
Yeah, Halame versus the Soul Taker. And you had Tiger Jeet Singh defeating Big Van Vader via disqualification. Masahiro Chono would defeat Kensuke Sasaki, and the Great Muta would go on to defeat Hiro Hase.
Yeah, those matches were great. Muta and Hase had some incredible matches, and New Japan was pretty incredible. This was even both in the other promotion, All Japan, this was a real golden era of Japanese wrestling, and the main event had the Animal Hamaguchi and Riki Choshu, who was beyond big in Japan, and defeating Shiro Kashinaka and Tatsumi Fujinami Fujinami would have a brief fling with the WCW world title picture the next year in the New Japan WCW. Although he didn't really win it, but in Japan, I think they recognized him as the as the world champion. But all this to say, is a beautiful mix of North American and Japanese talent, but also just a really, really glorious period in Japanese wrestling. All Japan was putting on had the best wrestlers in the world, and New Japan had a lot of the new young talent that was exciting people. Even new talent like the Pegasus Kid may not have been Japanese, but he was going to, well, become very noteworthy in the world for many reasons as time would go on. And guys like Bad News and Tiger Jeet Singh were kind of wrapping up their careers at this time. So really exciting to look back, and a lot of these were great shows. They were.
And you also had Animal Hamaguchi and Riki Choshu defeating Shiro Koshinaka and Tatsumi Fujinami.
Yes, that's what I was saying. And big deal, very big deal in Japan. Riki Choshu was, main focus of a lot of the New Japan stuff. And his, so there was just top to bottom, really interesting and a fantastic period in Japanese wrestling that many people, I'm sure, missed today. This is during the Purorisu sort of, however you pronounce it, Puros sort of period. And again, like last week, we were talking about that island death match between Saito and Antonio Inoki. And even though it was dumb, I mean, it was kind of considered really, really important because Saito and Inoki were just so important to the Japanese. As I've said many times, wrestling was covered in the sports pages there, not like here. It was thought to be very serious, regardless of it being a work or whatever. So.
And then we're going to be moving on to. I told you earlier on, about an hour ago, that we were going to discuss it, and here we are. October 23rd would mark the 31st anniversary of WCW's Halloween Havoc 1994. But first, before we get into that, interestingly, Jacques Rougeau's first retirement match with the WWF at the Montreal Forum that same weekend drew way more people, even without it being aired on free television or pay-per-view.
Yeah, way more people. I mean, Halloween Havoc had to give away thousands of comps to get 14,000 people in that building. There were only 8,500 paid. Whereas for Jacques, I mean, Jacques got like 18,000 paid into the forum to see his match with Pierre. So 10,000.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So less people were interested in Detroit to see Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair in a retirement cage match than were to see Jacques versus Pierre here in Montreal.
And of course, this retirement would not last for very long.
Who, Rougeau's or Flair's or both?
Well, I wasn't talking about Jacques in this case, but yes, his retirement lasted a little bit longer. But I'm talking about the Ric Flair retirement, where Ric Flair would say that he was supposed to be off TV at least a year. He would eventually return, I believe. By the time WCW Uncensored 95 came around, and I don't even want to discuss that because Flair was just brought in to do business.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even really want to do this. I mean, he was willing, as he was many times, to be the sacrificial lamb because he's a company man and whatever. And a lot of people have speculated that the heat between Eric Bischoff and Ric Flair actually started at this show and this deal because Bischoff really, I think, had to twist his arm to do it and kind of went back on some aspects of it. And a lot of the dissension between Bischoff and Flair, apparently, which would become legendary as a few years from this point, the talk is that it started with this show. This was the first crack in the armor between, Eric the Emperor Bischoff and the Nature Boys.
So this Halloween Havoc in question would go down at the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, Michigan. It would draw 14,000 fans for the highly anticipated event featuring a different type of retirement match where fans were unsure exactly which combatant in the main event would be forced to retire.
Yeah. But you knew somebody was going to retire. That was the whole deal, right? So somebody was. And they pulled out all the stops, though. They got a lot of celebrities involved and all this and that. So.
And this is a surprise to me. I didn't know this. In the dark match, you had Booker T with Stevie Ray taking on Brian Armstrong. Are you sure we're not talking about Brad Armstrong, or is it Brian Armstrong?
No, it is Brian. Brian Armstrong wrestled a whole bunch of matches on WCW Saturday Night and the syndicated shows too. So no, Brian Armstrong was working for WCW at this time.
And we're talking about the Road Dogg.
Yeah, we are talking about the Road Dogg.
Well, the Road Dogg, Brian Armstrong, would actually have a match against future legend Triple H, Triple O, back when he was calling him, when Paul Levesque was calling himself Terrorizing.
Ah, all right. Yeah, before he terrorized the locker rooms of the WWF. That's true.
And then we get into the main pay-per-view. So for the WCW World Television title match, you had then champion Johnny B. Bad taking on the Honky Tonk Man, or he drew the Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah. Well, they wanted to create, the rematches for Starrcade for this. Yeah, so.
And Eric Bischoff would actually go on to say, in regards to the Honky Tonk Man, he would say that's the only wrestler that he actually enjoyed firing.
Yeah, well, yeah, take it from who it comes, because I would rather celebrate the accomplishments of the Honky Tonk Man over Eric any day. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I guess Eric was opinionated enough. He just did not see the value in Honky Tonk. Didn't like him, just like he didn't like Beefcake. He didn't like a bunch of guys, and if you're on his bad list, you're on his bad list, I guess. And he only, begrudgingly hired Wayne Ferris, the Honky Tonk Man, I think, based on Hogan pushing him to. So. But I will say, Johnny B. Bad had quite the outfit on the show when he came out. Everybody, it was exciting because he had like fangs in his mouth, and he had a Halloween sort of outfit on with like bat wings and all this weird stuff. And like, so at least Mark Marrow knew how to start a show in style. I'll say that.
And also, now that we're talking about Mark Marrow, I also do want to send my heartfelt congratulations to Mark Marrow, as he recently proposed to his girlfriend and asked for her hand in marriage, and she said yes. Hopefully, this relationship will end up being a lot healthier and a lot better than his other marriage to you know who.
Right.
The
Well,
Mrs. Lesnar.
Right. Well, I don't know who his girlfriend is, but I hope she's aware that he used to be a bad man.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure he still is a bad man.
Yeah. Right. Sounds good.
So for the WCW World Tag Team titles, you would have Pretty Wonderful Paul Orndorff and Paul Roma defeating Stars and Stripes of Marcus Alexander Bagwell and Del Wilkes, the Patriot, to win the titles.
Sounds like it should be good, but it wasn't really. I never liked the
if it
old.
was in the Tokyo Dome, it would have been a 5-star match.
Yeah, probably would have. And the Patriot did have some excellent Japanese matches and all that. But, and of course, Orndorff and Roma's reputation speak for themselves. But I never got into those, well, especially not Stars and Stripes, but I never even got into Orndorff and Roma. It just seems like they were just both there and singles, and they just threw them together. But what's that expression? The bloom was off the rose, I think. So
Or, as Jim Cornette likes to say, the horses left the barn.
that's right. The horseman, Mr. Roma, and all them, they has left the barn, unfortunately. And look, I mean, they were still great for what they did, and I mean, Roma, of course, was excellent in the ring here too, and everything. But I don't know. I just thought the team was kind of makeshift, but it lasted a while, and I don't know. Bagwell, I never forgave the Bagwell Scorpio team, so I wasn't gonna, for taking away Scorpio's deserved singles push. So no matter who Bagwell teamed with, I wasn't gonna love it. So I did like the Patriot, but this was a very brief teaming of Marcus and the late Del Wilkes.
And then you would have Dave Sullivan defeating Kevin Sullivan by
Horrible.
count out.
Words cannot express how horrible this was.
Please
Bad
do
idea.
tell.
Well,
Tell us all about its downright ugliness.
yeah. Well, it was based, I think, on the idea that Dave was supposed to be Hulk Hogan's number one fan or something, and turns out he's the brother. Kevin Sullivan and him being brothers was like Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger being twins, right? So, the tallest guy there and the shortest guy there happened to be brothers. I guess because they were blonde or whatever. I don't know. It was just Dave a good guy, needed more polish. He wasn't very good as the Equalizer, and that's putting it mildly. So, I mean, I got to give him, and I will give him credit though. He was good at the character. Like the character, he did it well. But as the expression goes, speaking of expressions, then the bell rang, and Kevin was not exactly having all-star matches by this point, and Dave never had all-star matches, and I don't know if it was just sillier or just terrible, but this should never have been shown on any pay-per-view. It shouldn't have even been a quiet match on WCW Pro, let alone on Halloween Havoc. It was bad. It was damn bad.
Yeah, wasn't he also calling himself Evad or Irving? Bobby Heenan used to call him that.
Yeah, because he was dyslexic, so he would go into these dyslexic fits the way Abdullah would have the the illiteracy come and go like his. So his dyslexia would come on, and he would pronounce his name backwards as Evad Sullivan as well. So until he got the bunny rabbit there with Diamond Dallas Page, it was pretty sad. So.
Yeah, the rabbit pretty much saved his life.
Yeah, and honestly saved the character for a brief time too. So.
And then we go to the natural Dustin Rhodes, the future Gold Dust, defeating Arn Anderson, who's being accompanied by Colonel Robert Parker and the man called Ming.
Yeah, that's right. Ming was a total badass here, and he's probably more interesting than the combatants. I mean, they're great combatants, but I mean, Dustin Rhodes versus Arn Anderson had been done on television like 200 times maybe by then. So I don't know. It was hard to get excited about it, and sure enough, yeah. Well, I mean, actually, it was the best match on the show up until that point, so I should give it some credit. It was a lot better than Johnny B. Bad and Honky Tonk and Stars and Stripes and Pretty Wonderful, and obviously, it was a hell of a lot better than the match that preceded it. So, the Sullivan brothers. So, it was just a good match, but I don't know. I mean, that whole thing with the stud stable and Colonel Parker and all that. I mean, it was really out of date, and it was, it was kind of, it was dumb, and it was also a pretty racist kind of gimmick too, in a way. And I don't know. So, yeah. You had to love it, I guess. Very few did, I'm sure.
No, I wasn't one of them. I really wasn't one of them. And then you
I mean,
had
again, Robert Fuller is a very talented guy. He's a good promoter, great wrestler, but I liked it better in Memphis when he was heading up the stud stable and the USWA and Continental. It was different, but this iteration of them, and look, he's the one that kind of broke up the Hollywood Blondes, right? In a matter of speaking. So
Well, on screen, behind
on
the
screen,
scenes, that's a completely different story.
yes, that's true. That's true. But on screen, it was him. Damn you, Colonel Parker.
And in the WC, and then for the WCW United States title, you had champion Hacksaw Jim Duggan, or
Oh,
as Bobby Heenan always used to like to call him, the biggest, dumbest termite, defeating stunning Steve Austin via disqualification in an 8-minute brawl.
this was kind of sad. I mean, I don't know what was sadder when Duggan won the U.S. title from Austin in 30 seconds, or having to sit through 8 minutes of Steve. I'm sure Steve Austin wasn't enjoying it. I mean, here's a guy who Eric Bischoff and company really didn't know what to do with. They had no idea. I mean, they knew he was great, but they didn't know the gold mine they had on their hands, and it just doesn't seem fair to see him, Duggan, who was really good, like 7 years before this, for Austin to have to, just to do this in 1994 was a far cry from when he was working with Pillman, working against Pillman, working with Dustin, working with whoever, Barry Windham, the aforementioned. But this was really bad stuff. I mean, this is like the Hulk Hogan crew taking over WCW in a very bad way, and it was jaw dropping to watch WCW deteriorate. Maybe not in terms of numbers, because the Hogan thing was very beneficial. But let's face it, before the NWO and before the Luchadors and before Nitro, like, this stuff was really bad. This was, I don't care if the media, the mainstream liked it because had the Hulk Hogan stamp on it. But when you consider all the great stuff that NWA and to some degree WCW had done, and you're down to dyslexic Dave Sullivan and Stars and Stripes and Duggan, and I don't know, just even the Honky Tonk Man is as great as he is. I mean, it's out of place. Like, it's the newer breed of fan was pretty wise to the idea that, I mean, no wonder they were starting to watch things like ECW. Let's put it that way. No wonder they were looking for an alternative. I mean, this was really horrible stuff. I know Bischoff likes to fob off the blame and say, well, I wasn't involved in the booking at this time. And so what? I mean, it wasn't so great when he was, except for the NWO and maybe the Luchadors and all that. But anyway, so horrible stuff. I felt terrible for Steve Austin, even at this time, before I knew the big star he'd become.
And then you would have Vader defeating, or with Harley Race, defeating the Guardian Angel.
Yeah. Wow. They couldn't call him the boss for too long because the WWF didn't like that with Ray Traylor. So Bischoff had the idea, of course, because the Guardian Angels were becoming so big on the New York subway and were getting a lot of TV exposure, they struck a deal with Curtis Sliwa, the head of the Guardian Angels. And next thing you know, Ray Traylor is becoming the Guardian Angel.
Yeah, and then eventually he would go back to being called Big Bubba Rogers, and all was right in the world.
I guess so. I know it's too bad because he was really great, and his wrestling was great even. But yeah, that character was not the right fit for WCW for sure. And Ray Traylor was so strongly identified with Big Bubba and Big Boss Man that no, no. Good match though. It was a good match.
Good, yeah, good match. Good match. I mean,
Wasn't
two big guys going at it. I mean, and they got 8 minutes and 17 seconds.
Yeah, it was a lot better when they wrestled each other at Spring Stampede that year, and even at Slamboree. But they kept going back to it, and this was probably the worst of those. But some of those were pretty darn good. So again, putting aside Dustin versus Arn, up until now, the best match on the show, probably, pretty much, which isn't saying much. But Harley Race took a lot of really crazy bumps in this match. you got to give it to the late great Harley Race. I mean, he took some really wacky bumps that a guy his age probably shouldn't have during this match, and turned out to be kind of the highlight of the match in some ways.
And then we talked about these guys earlier. We talked about the good old nasty boys, Brian Knobbs and Jerry Sags. On this pay per view, they would go on to defeat the stud stable of Bunkhouse Buck and Terry Funk. Once again, with Colonel Robert Parker and the man called Ming.
Ming did double duty, as did Parker. Well, I hate to see Terry Funk wasted like this, but Terry Funk was still entertaining because he was Terry Funk. The Nasty Boys, of course, were always hard workers. And as a matter of fact, if you take out Bunko's book, I could have lived with it maybe. But I don't know. Again, like it was just lame. I mean, it's just lame. I don't know anything to do with the stud stable. It's not as bad as the Dungeon of Doom, but it's not great. I mean, that was the channel changing popcorn moment for me in all their shows around this. Anytime the stud stable, I mean, Funk was only there for a short time, but it was mostly Bunkhouse Buck and I don't know, Dick Slater for a while. Dick Slater is usually good, and he is good, was good, but I don't even remember who was in it, but it was just, I think, I guess Arn Anderson was in it for a while, but kind of a waste. And actually, I don't remember any Bunkhouse Buck match I liked, but I liked Bunkhouse Buck back when he was Jimmy Golden in Memphis. I thought he was good. But this Bunkhouse Buck character was one of the lowlights of 90s WCW for me.
Oh, that goes without saying. I couldn't even tell you a great Bunkhouse Buck match, and I don't think Dave Meltzer could either.
Maybe not even in the Tokyo Dome. I don't know.
Oh no, not even in the Tokyo Dome. But maybe if it was in the Tokyo Dome, it'd be like 10 stars.
Maybe. You have to go to the Mid-South Coliseum via the Tokyo Dome. That's right.
And in our main event for the WCW World Heavyweight Title Steel Cage Retirement Match, we had good old Mr. T as the special guest referee, and you would see Hulk Hogan defeat Ric Flair, who would be with sensuous Sherry. And Hulk Hogan would have Jimmy Hart, the mouth of the South, by his side.
Yeah. Oh, that's very true. And it was a star-studded night, too, as I was saying, because not only you had Mr. T as the special ref, you had Muhammad Ali in the front row, you had boxer, the other hitman, not Bret Hart, but Thomas the Hitman Hearns was in attendance. And yeah, it was, again, a lot of bells and whistles, distractions. Of course, Flair was great, but I don't know. It was a lot of spectacle. And actually, the most amazing moment of the match actually turned out to be Sherry, because she took this crazy risk when she was standing at the top of the cage, and she jumped off the top of the cage onto Hogan with the Randy Savage axe handle, and she wasn't even wearing shoes, and she could have really hurt herself. And but she was so great at what she did, and I think that was more interesting than most. I mean, their match was, well, I mean, you saw them wrestle at Bash at the Beach a few months earlier, the Clash of the Champions. They had the rematch, I think, if I remember correctly, and saw the fact it was in a cage this time, but whatever. I don't know. It was, again, though, there was a lot of hokiness. It was very hard to take this seriously. And no, I mean, who really believed that one of those two was really going to retire? I mean, that's the biggest problem of all, is believing that you're going to see a retirement match. But with Jacques, we all believed it. But with Hogan and Flair, did we really think one of these guys was really going to retire? So it was really hard to watch it seriously.
Well, the only thing we can really believe, we can't believe retirement matches. Well, in some cases they are in fact that case, but the only time we can really believe that something's going on is the loser leaves town or loser leaves, WWF match.
Unless they come back under a mask a few weeks later or something.
Well, yeah, like what happened back in 2009 with the Miz, or Les Miz, as then, and this was at the, and then this is just something I have to get at. I always thought, I was pretty jaded, and I was just hate watching or hope watching. This is back when WWE Raw used to have, instead of a general manager, they used to have this guest host thing. And they had Jeremy Piven, a disgraced actor, Jeremy Piven, as one of the hosts. And you could tell this guy is completely oblivious. He would call the Miz Les Mis, and he had said this thing where he says, you will be banned from the Summer Fest or from the Summer Games. And John Cena's in the ring, and he's like, I think you mean SummerSlam.
Oh my God, that's embarrassing if that was unintentional.
And of course, what did happen was the Miz, Les Mis, would end up getting banned from Raw on top of that. But then the following week after that, or the following weeks later, when they would be in Calgary, Alberta, with Sergeant Slaughter as the guest host, there would be a match where the winner of the match would get a contract or get hired by the WWE. So it was Nick Dinsmore, Eugene, and then this guy wearing a Canadian a mask, that, a red and white mask. And after the match was all set and done, the masked man wearing the Canadian mask would win. And underneath the mask, who is it? The Miz.
Well, yeah. Although I have to say, rather than Jeremy Piven, I think I'd rather watch Art Donovan sort of officiates than Jeremy Piven.
Yes, I would rather listen to Art Donovan completely butcher and massacre the 1994 King of the Ring with his oblivious commentary than see Jeremy Piven make a complete ass of himself, although years later, some of the things that would be revealed about him would be way worse than him not remembering what the biggest party of the summer's pay-per-view name is.
Well, that's it. And, I always say it's kind of dangerous when you get people who don't know anything about wrestling, don't care, don't take it seriously, don't like it, don't whatever, and you just, you make it seem like they're supposed to be part of the show. Well, things can go wrong. And sometimes, even if they don't go wrong, you can kind of tell the person is just there to get a paycheck. They don't really. Yeah, so it's often the risk doesn't justify the reward for it. But I guess
Exactly.
Jeremy Piven.
Just ask John Stossel or Richard Belzer.
Yeah, but I'm also thinking of the ones who were part of WrestleMania that obviously didn't even care that they were there. There've been a lot of stories of some like the divide between the celebrities who got it and wanted to play along versus the ones that were kind of rolling their eyes a bit. Like Jenny Garth, I heard at WrestleMania 10 was, unlike Pamela Anderson, who was the year after, was more than happy to do her role and play along. But Jenny Garth wasn't so much, and there were many others. I'm just using Jenny Garth as a random example, and and it shows. I mean, you can almost tell when the look in their eyes when they don't want to be there, they don't care. And Piven, I guess, well, again, in hindsight, not the best choice to have there, perhaps. but
well, it just so happened that around that same time he had a movie coming out.
Yeah. Well, that's it. So it's like they bite their lip to do the press tour and to do things like this, and they don't necessarily even want to. I've heard many actors complain about what they have to do to garner publicity for their films, but don't sacrifice the wrestling business. So,
no,
anyway.
No, indeed.
Although by 2009, it sacrificed itself pretty much. But so.
Before we put a bow and wrap things up for this week's episode, of course, I want to send a shout out to one of our viewers. He's a great person. So we want to thank North Star, who was a longtime listener of the In the Ring radio wrestling show that used to be on the air back a long time ago. And one of the things that he was telling us was when we were discussing Ricky Steamboat, and I totally agree. Ricky Steamboat should have been the WWF champion, along with Roddy Piper, not Rodney de Piper, as Santino Marella called him.
So what is North Star saying? That Steamboat should have been champion when? The first run or the second?
19, well, I think we're talking about, well, we didn't specify which run, but I would say, he had the Intercontinental title run. He was the workhorse champion in 1987, and we know the story about how that all came about. But we're talking about 1991. This is coming off of, as we discussed earlier, the great matches that he and Ric Flair were having. And these are matches that would be 5-star caliber worthy. And they don't even have to be in the Tokyo Dome.
No, they can be in the Superdome in New Orleans with a few people watching you, right? Yeah, no, I mean, he's right. Well, I mean, that's it. But that's why he came back, was to have a main event run, even if it would have been nice if they had made him champion, but he at least expected to be in contention. Doing opening matches with, and no disrespect to Steve Keirn, I mean, he deserved better too, but his name was still new at that time in that federation. But of course he would have made a great champion. Look, I mean, he had he checked all the boxes, as it said, and it's and they couldn't have done worse than what they wound up doing, pretty much, except for Flair. I mean, Savage was very good too, but I mean, yeah, honestly, yes, he's right. They could have used a Ricky Steamboat. They would have, because he was one of the most sympathetic baby faces of all time, and a great babyface champion type of guy, and an absolutely fantastic wrestler. And why not? It would have been nice. Would have been nice.
All right. Well, everybody, we thank you all so much for joining us for yet another episode of Freeform Friday, or as we're calling it this week, exceptionally, Freeform Tuesday Night Titans.
Oh, good. Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik will be out later.
Well, in spirit.
In spirit, yes.
In spirit, not physically.
Even Lord Alfred Hayes, too.
Yes, and Lord Alfred Hayes, too. Thank you all so much for joining in. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope it wasn't too disappointing. And as always, if you like this kind of content that Alan Greenberg and myself, David Buchanan, deliver to you, don't be shy to hit that like and subscribe button. It does wonders for our cause and for our channel. And also, you'll be notified every time we post some new content and every time we go live. So you don't have to search all across the deep, dark rabbit hole universe that YouTube can be to find us.
True.
So I wish you all a tremendous week and a tremendous Halloween. And it is game 4 of the World Series. And normally I do not cheer for a team that emanates from Toronto, Canada. But since we don't have the Montreal Expos, let's go Blue Jays.
Amen. I'm sure Abe Knuckleball Schwartz agrees with you.
Oh, I'm sure he does. All right. Take care, everybody. Have yourself a tremendous week. This is Alan Greenberg. I'm David Buchanan. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we shall see you next time. Take care, everybody.